Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest Sam Learning webinar, which is focused around virtual schooling. My name is Stephanie King and I am the Commercial Director here at Sam Learning. And we also have this afternoon with me our Regional Director, Craig Hendelman, who, time permitting, will be taking questions at the end of today's session. So this is an open forum and you will find on your screen a question box where you can ask any questions and we will aim to answer those towards the end of this webinar. To ask a question, simply click on the orange arrow on the control bar, which is found on the right hand side of your screen, and type your question into the questions box. Okay, so with everything that's going on today and recently, global pandemics forcing national lockdowns and school closures, adding to the already long list of teacher headaches, you could be forgiven for thinking that virtual schooling is a fresh, new option to educate our young outside of the school gates. But the truth is that many schools have, for many years now, had a successful virtual schooling plan in place. And the reasons for having that plan in place are many. Perhaps a school has a number of B code students learning off-site, or students that have been externally excluded, or perhaps they are a centre that hosts children in care. Either way, and regardless of the reason behind its needs, a solid virtual learning plan is amongst a number of strategies that can be deployed to ensure that students can receive a top-class education even without the benefits of being within the classroom. However, with the events of the past few weeks, there has been some real buzz in the educational world around the words virtual schooling and how perhaps this type of schooling could be the new normal moving forwards until the day that life as we knew it returns to the calm and stability of old. So as a collective, we move forward together. And as a director here at Sam Learning, I have truly been fascinated at how quickly schools, edtech suppliers, and other corporate entities have come together to ensure that we can educate our learners in the safety of the confines of their own home. A brilliant example of that is Sam Learning's recent partnership with the BBC, where we have supplied a large amount of content for their BBC bite-sized daily programme, which the Director General of the BBC, Tony Hall, has called the biggest education effort the BBC has ever undertaken. And we can do that successfully because the concept of virtual schooling is not new to us either. For over 25 years now, we have been advocates of online education for all. And I cannot emphasise that as the importance here. Education for all, regardless of sex, race, ability or social advantage, or regardless of whether those students learn from school, at a tutor or from home, Sam Learning has been a consistent presence delivering a launchpad for career in life. And we continue to do that today by growing and evolving our systems to meet the ever-changing needs of our industry. And today we openly share with you tips that we have picked up over the last 2 decades about how to successfully school your learners virtually and how, should you wish to know, Sam Learning can help you to deliver outstanding e-learning for all. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Sam Learning's 6 tips for successful virtual schooling. Tip 1, know the resources available to you. Having a clear picture of all resources available to you and how you can use those resources to provide a solid learning experience is key to any success with virtual schooling. Regardless of the method that you are using to reach out to your learners remotely, having the data of what is and what isn't available should be your absolute starting point. Your school must know exactly what resources are available to them to cover the topics for each class, and then how each teacher is going to present that resource, and then assess each learner to ensure that no one is left behind. Sam Learning, as a cross-curricular resource, proudly shares our topic lists across 27 subjects over 5 key stages with our teachers so that they can plan which topic they want to cover for each class with the confidence in knowing that there are resources readily available, whether to assess learning post-lesson or via a flipped learning strategy, setting those tasks before class to measure prior knowledge and adjust the lesson for groups of students as necessary. Once the tasks are set on SAM Learning, teachers can assess real-time reports to track comprehension and progress as the system marks the work for the teacher, allowing them to concentrate on other important tasks. Step 2, plan ahead. We all sometimes fall victim to leaving things until the last minute, and due to school closures, some teachers have been in touch to let us know that they are finding it difficult to effectively plan for the weeks ahead. Teachers that are using SAM Learning effectively are using the set tasks functionality to set work to classes, year groups, or individuals on Fridays to start at 9 AM the following Monday morning, and a due date of 4 PM Thursday, allowing for Friday that week to be used to review completed task scores, add students to intervention groups if necessary, and then plan and set the tasks for the week ahead. If you wish and are able to, you can even set task start dates weeks in advance, as the SAM Learning system allows this. Therefore, the system can do the heavy lifting when it comes to setting tasks and marking homework for you so that you can focus on more important aspects of schooling. Tip 3, maintain routine. So it is no secret to anyone in education that routine is an important part of schooling. And a significant challenge of virtual schooling is ensuring that routines and timetables are stuck to in order to reduce the chances of students becoming disengaged while out of school. You will appreciate that routine is closely correlated to behaviour, so taking away that element from your learners can cause disengagement in learning both at home and for when schools return. Schools that are successfully delivering a solid virtual schooling experience to their students are using either the same timetables as previously or amending them as necessary to keep students engaged. For example, your Year 10 students are timetabled for English literature between 9 till 10:30, maths 11 till 12:30, and MFL from 1:30 till 3. Teachers can set tasks via SAM Learning that enables learners to progress and be assessed during that time while teachers are online to support any questions that their learners might have via email, Google Hangouts, VLE chat rooms, and so on. Tip 4, structure your lessons and make them engaging. The wonderful thing about technology is that there is a vast amount of wonderful content that can be used to deliver an engaging lesson remotely. Reviewing and introducing content to your students via resources such as BBC Bite Size, YouTube, or through your VLE will play a big part of ensuring that your students are using this time wisely and not falling into bad habits at home. In addition to being able to assess knowledge and understanding on SAM Learning, you also have access to our activity builder that can insert pictures, sound, and even embed videos from online streaming services such as YouTube to teach your students in a way that only you know how. You could even utilise our activity builder to record an audio clip of your familiar voice with no limits to length or size, and create your own questions to see how well they have absorbed the information, and then create intervention groups to help those students that have struggled. Tip 5, remember to differentiate. Being separated from your students can be difficult, and it can be hard to find the time to focus on different targeted intervention groups when you are spending a lot of your time trying to keep the learning experience as normalised as possible. It is important, however, to ensure that regardless of ability level, your students are still being set tasks at an appropriate level, and Sam Learning's three-wave intervention model is currently helping schools to do exactly that. Wave 1 provides you with the functionality to set work to your regular classes and subgroups within those classes. Wave 2 provides you with the functionality to set work for your school intervention groups, which can include learners from different classes and ability levels. And you can use the Wave 2 functionality to create subject-based differentiated ability groups to set work to, while also keeping a focus on key groups of learners, such as your looked after children. Wave 3 provides you with the functionality to set work to individual learners within a class or target group for highly personalised interventions, with the activity builder allowing you to edit existing activities and build your own unique resources using rich media such as pictures, audio and video. Sam Learning allows you to create bespoke activities to suit each individual learning need. And finally, Tip 6, reward and motivate your learners. Even in a virtual school setting, keeping your learners' motivation high and rewarding them for good work is paramount. After all, recognising and reinforcing positive behaviours and work is likely to inspire your learners to want that recognition again and put in the work to get it. Whether you have a school merit or demerit system, prize schemes, house point system, or send reports to the parents on a regular basis, keep pushing those rewards out to your learners to avoid them from becoming disengaged at the first sign of difficulty. Each day, schools that are successfully delivering a virtual schooling experience email the parents of all students daily usage reports of learning completed on Sam Learning, identifying and congratulating the learners with the highest usage scores who are working well from home. Students also have access to Sam World, an interactive world where they can compete on school leaderboards and challenge their friends to unlock hidden animations and accessories for their own unique avatar. Having worked directly with schools for a number of years and through a number of challenges, I'm sure, as you would imagine, we have quite a number of schools that are happy to sing our praises to other schools when they feel that Sam Learning can make a similar impact in their school. One of those schools who I am absolutely delighted to introduce you to this afternoon is George Pinder's School in North Yorkshire. They bought Sam Learning back in 2019 and they have been using it brilliantly both before the school closures and now to provide a virtual learning experience for their learners. Leslie Welsh is the principal at George Pinder, and she, who has been using Sam Learning for many years now, has kindly agreed to speak to you all today about how they are currently finding triumph through adversity using Sam Learning as a core part of their virtual schooling strategy. So good afternoon, Leslie. Welcome to our webinar. Just to begin, could you give us all an overview of your school context? So the size, the background of your learners, whether you're part of a multi-academy trust and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And hi, everybody. It's great to be here and to talk about what we're doing during these unprecedented times, and great to talk about Sam Learning because I am a big fan. So certainly our school is an 11 to 16 fully inclusive school in the south of Scarborough, in the middle of a council estate called Eastfield. We have 640 students on roll, leaving us at the top end. We do have smaller year groups, but we're now managing to get a healthier intake, and we've got stable year groups throughout new year 7 right through to year 9. One issue that we do wrestle with in this area is in-year movement. So in the last academic year, we lost and gained approximately 50 students. So that's something that does pose some certain challenges. We have 39% of our children who are in receipt of the pupil premium, and 53% of our cohort live in the most disadvantaged areas according to the IDACI ratings. Our school was judged as serious weaknesses in June 2017, and we began the process of academisation. It took a long time, and we finally crossed the line in March 2019, Our sponsors are Hope Learning Trust from York, and I took up post as principal in April 2019. And just so that colleagues really understand the situation that we were in, I am the 4th head teacher in 5 years.
Thank you, Leslie. And could you now provide us an overview of the activity the Trust and your school has done to ensure virtual schooling has been a success so far?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just reflecting while listening to you present, Steph, that actually hearing your top tips, we've done so many of those without actually thinking about it explicitly. So a really good reminder for us. We had an incredible effort from my assistant vice principal within 4 days to make virtual schooling a reality at George Pinder. We'd actually migrated to Google in October 2019 as part of a trust-wide strategy, but we hadn't embraced it fully for pedagogy to any stretch. We had some pioneers who in school were using Google Classroom really successfully, and actually they were especially in the performance faculty, so PE and music, but other subject areas hadn't embraced it at all. So what we decided to do was to create a blended approach to virtual schooling in which students could access resources on Google Sites, and those Google Sites linked to a series of shared Google Drives, and then they could complete tasks on either Google or Sam Learning or MathsWatch. After the first 2 weeks of school closure, not closure, and then after the Easter holidays, we did some surveys and we got some feedback from students, families and staff, and we decided to introduce checklists just so we could guide tasks in a more uniform way on the Google Drives for each subject, for each teacher. And that actually allowed for more differentiation and allowed us to respond better to the needs of our individual classes.
What steps have the different teams and departments had to take to ensure success with virtual schooling?
I think there was a real training need for students and for staff within a 3-day period. Our trusts were very mindful of workload, and we didn't want to create unnecessary work for anybody before any announcements were made. So in school, the only thing that we had asked we'd asked colleagues to do was to consider preparing some revision materials for year 11 before the 18th of March. So after the announcement from the government, on the Thursday morning, we held a staff briefing showing how people could upload resources into shared drives. Middle leaders and teachers then basically divvied up the work. So they uploaded resources for different year groups and all took a part in that. On the Friday, we held a series of assemblies to show students how to log on to the shared drives. We created a special area on the school website to make the initial link for students straightforward, so they knew they could just go straight to the school website to find the link to the Google Sites. And then students obviously log in using their school network account details. My assistant vice principal, who leads on teaching and learning, he did the lion's share of the work initially. So he created the drives and then created how-to videos for students, which were also uploaded for students and their families. And he also spent a lot of time over the first couple of weeks responding to queries, lots of queries about how to log on and lots of queries from children who were trying to log on with a different email address rather than their school one. After Easter, because we knew then that we were going to have a longer closure period, at SLT we discussed the need to formalise the experience and to get some more consistency across subjects. I think some of our students were finding the amount of work and how to navigate their way through work slightly overwhelming. We also decided that we needed to keep the content fresh. So after the decision on checklists, we needed to run some online staff training about how to make one, and my assistant vice principal made another video for students about how this would work. And we also run a program now of quality assurance to check the quality of the checklists and make sure that they're updated every Sunday for the week ahead.
Thank you, Leslie. And with all this activity going on, what impact has this had on the roles of these staff? Have you got any advice on what you would do differently or what you've learned from your actions? And what are your next steps and recommendations moving forward?
Yeah, I think some staff have had to upskill very, very quickly. Sometimes we can be guilty of assuming too much about the digital capabilities of staff and actually students for that matter. We found through this process that some students, they didn't even know how to access an email or how to write an email. So we've really had to do quite a lot of training about that. In hindsight, we probably would have begun the rollout of the Google Drives the week before school closure to allow more time for staff to get used to them, but also to ensure that students were fully aware of how to make them work. So probably we would have done something more practical where they had to log on in school first. After half term, we are going to migrate more over to Google Classroom, but we will keep the shared drives as a one-stop shop for revision and resources. We did discuss this initially, and we felt strongly that we were not ready to embrace Google Classroom fully at the beginning of lockdown, and we didn't want to cause any unnecessary stress or unnecessary workload for staff. But now we need to fully utilise all of the different features that Google Classroom can offer us in terms of interactivity, given that we're not likely to see our Year 7 to Year 9 students before summer, and actually who even knows after that as well. So the more functionality we can get from our online solution, the better.
How have staff had to adapt their teaching practice for remote education?
Yeah, I think this has been interesting because teachers have been using PowerPoints and so on for years to present their lessons. But what they've had to think about really carefully is what they say during delivery rather than just what's written down. And they've had to adapt their resources accordingly. Initially, we worked simply on consolidating content that had already been taught. Obviously now, given that school closure is going on for so much longer, we've had to change and start delivering new content, so that's been even more important. I think we've also had to be quite picky in terms of resources. So much became available a few weeks into school closure, especially after the launch of the Oak Academy and then the new bite-sized resources. Teachers have always been magpies, and we're very clear for workload that there's no need to reinvent the wheel, but we want to frame all work within our system that we've set up. So we ask teachers to use links from the Google checklists so that the students always know that they have to come back to the Google Drives to start their work off.
And how are you using Sam Learning, and how does it complement the other systems that you're currently using in school as well?
Well, we love Sam Learning at George Pinder, so we are using it a lot. It was already really embedded. We'd done a full launch of Sam last September and the usage was already very high. Students were so used to logging into it and accessing tasks that this just continued for them. It's been quite interesting actually that the feedback from students who have worse internet access or who have a less useful device to access Google Drives are actively engaging only with Sam Learning during this period because they do feel confident with it. They can use it on their phones and they can cope using Sam on their phones. And they sometimes find the Google Drives a little bit clunky, but that's been a real benefit then, that at least those students who have the least privileges are able to still access some learning. The checklists still show the SAM task, but obviously they're set on SAM by the teachers for their appropriate classes. And we really feel like this blended approach is perfect. So the students can go to the Google Drives to revise, or they can learn some new content from a video or a PowerPoint or a resource, and then they can be tested on that or check their understanding through Sam Learning, with all the workload benefits for staff that come from that, given that it does self-mark, it emails you the answers and so on. I think working from home has also allowed staff more time to fully embrace all the features of Sam Learning. So some staff who have never done so before are happily creating their own resources using Activity Builder and sharing those, and they're loving that too.
So just to confirm, how are you setting and reviewing the work?
So we set tasks on checklists in Google Drive. Teachers choose which ones they want students to share for feedback, and very often they are using Sam Learning as their tool to check understanding.
And are you using video lessons? If so, how effective are these?
Yeah, we're not using them at present, and this has been a hot topic of discussion at MAT level. We are very mindful of the different pressures on families and staff during these unprecedented times, and we did not want to contribute to any unnecessary stress or tension for our families and for our teaching colleagues. I think we need to remember that we do have several families who do not have even one device, let alone a device per child, which can be used for schoolwork. And we don't want to widen the gap between students, but we do feel like there might be a middle ground where we can interact more face-to-face with students. So we're currently exploring how we can make better use of Google Hangout with students to increase that contact, but in a safe and controlled environment.
Have you had to adapt the curriculum for remote education?
Yeah, we asked our departments to complete a reflection tool to look at their schemes of learning and consider what could be covered online, what might be need to be taught when we get students back eventually. I think the hardest subjects for the curriculum have been the practical ones. So how can you teach art or PE or technology or drama remotely? One solution we got was that we provided art packs for our families who have taken GCSE art, and they picked them up, and that solved the art situation. But other practical students have had to think really carefully about how they could do a different kind of task for their children. So they've worked on a series of challenges, for example, to engage students in a technological problem or in a PE challenge.
Yeah, engaging learners is very important. How are you currently engaging your learners from a distance? What resources are being used?
I think that's one of the hardest things, isn't it? I'm in school today and it's so strange. We've only got 4 children in today, given that it is the half-term holidays, and the corridors are so quiet, and so much about school and what makes school a success is that relationship and that warmth and that community. So we're trying really hard to engage our students through emails and through praise. We're using video assemblies to remind students that we are there for them. We've had staff do some silly challenges, so miming to a song, sharing pictures of their pets that we made into a video, and that all of that is done to try and keep our students coming back to us. Our heads of year are emailing every week. We phone home to all students every fortnight. On Sam, our Sam Learning lead, she emails all year groups every week with a motivational email and a check-in on the leaderboards. And we also are using digital praise with certificates printed by all departments that we also put on our social media and try and get rewards in that way. Our teaching and learning lead emails a Google form to students every week to check in with them and just find out how their work's been going. And we also check in with them through a wellbeing survey.
Fantastic. And what provisions have been put in place for student wellbeing? So what actions have been taken for your looked after children and those from vulnerable groups?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely vital, and one of the most important priorities that we have. So all of our students have been given a safeguarding phone number. They can text it at any time, and a member of school staff will come back to them as soon as the message is seen. We've updated our set of links on the school website about wellbeing, and we're sending those out on a rolling program on social media, in letters to parents, in emails to students. Every fortnight, we send out a student survey on Google Forms that is all about wellbeing, and we phone any students who say that they're feeling down or say that they have a problem. We make daily or multiple times weekly phone calls to students from more vulnerable groups. And of course, we do have some students from vulnerable groups who are accessing school as part of our current provision. And with all students, the most important thing is that we're reminding them constantly that we are here for them, that even though we're not all together in school, school is still open and they're still part of our community.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much for that, Leslie. I'm sure everybody on this webinar this afternoon has found that very insightful. Leslie is just one of many schools who we currently work with who are delivering a successful virtual learning experience for their learners. And for anyone who would like to ask any questions to Leslie directly, I'm sure she would be more than happy to give you a further school's eye view of Sam Learning. So should you wish to speak to Leslie, please just get in touch with me when I do follow up an email after today's webinar, and I'm certain we'll be able to get that arranged for you. At this time, I would also like to take the time to introduce you to our latest short video welcoming you to Sam Learning that you will find in the handout section under the control panel to the right hand side of your screen. So please do take 5 minutes after this webinar should you wish to learn a little more about Sam Learning's award-winning content. You will also find there our most recent brochure introducing you to Sam Learning, as well as our Fisher Family Trust research, which has found that Sam Learning is actually proven to improve your learners with a significant impact on your disadvantaged learners as well. Okay, so we're now going to be holding a question and answer session around the many questions that have come through this afternoon on the webinar. We're also more than happy to arrange a virtual demonstration specific to your school at a later date, either with myself or Craig, who's going to be speaking shortly. So please do feel free to get in touch via phone or email on the details in your webinar pack, and we can get that arranged for you. Okay, so Craig, over to you.
Lovely, thank you, Stephanie. And yes, we've had quite a few really good questions. So what we'll do is I'll try to answer as many as I can. And as Steph said, if I don't get the chance to ask them here on this webinar, either Steph or myself will get back to you in the very near future. So saying that, the first question that came through was from Sarah. And Sarah's asked us to review her current virtual schooling setup. She's using BBC Bitesize, Oak Academy, and GCSE Pod. Well, Sarah, firstly, well done for not only putting together what sounds like a really good package for your learners, but also for continuing to look at resources. I think that really reflects on what you're doing and on how you're looking to improve on the resources available to you, and that you don't just have a that will do type of attitude when it comes to your students. So Sarah, looking at your offering, it definitely has its strengths. You've got teaching and learning tools with some subject content readily available. But perhaps the area that you can look to expand upon is how you're going to assess this work, either to measure metacognition post-lesson, as it were, or even via a flipped learning style of assessing knowledge before the classroom to give you an idea of which students will need the most help moving forward. And that's certainly something that a system such as us will help you achieve. Thank you, Sarah. The next question that came through was from Neil, who said, is there a way to buy any virtual learning system, but only for the duration of school closures? Neil, thank you for your question. And while I certainly can't answer that for all providers, I can certainly confirm that we here at Sam Learning do offer a rolling monthly contract of £450 per month with no tie-in and no minimum contract length, which is a relatively new offering for us, but we wanted to make sure that every school has the resources that they need, regardless of whether they have the budget for a 12-month contract or not. So if this is something that could interest you, Neil, I certainly suggest we speak after this webinar. Okay, let's have a look here. So Jessica has asked, and quite rightly so, that if we were so confident in how e-learning was the way forward through school closures, we would provide it for free to every school so that they could review it for themselves with their students. And Jessica, I absolutely agree with you. I think that for any school to be confident that they're making the right move for their teachers and learners, additional to reading published evidence and case studies and the like, every single school should have the right to put that content in front of staff and students for them to use for a period of time. And that's exactly the reason why we offer a 30-day money-back guarantee on every contract of 12 months or longer. And in that 30 days, you're going to receive support from your own dedicated school success manager, along with a full training schedule, so that at the end of that 30 days, every member of staff can make an informed decision about whether you want to keep that ball rolling and whether Sam Learning is indeed the right move for you. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, keeping an eye on time. I think we probably have time for one more question. So Esther has asked if e-learning was a good option for supporting her SEN learners. And I'm pleased that you've asked that, Esther, because we're just putting plans together for a webinar in the next few weeks covering exactly that. So we'll be sure to send you an invite. But to be brief, as I'm keen, as I said, to not go over time, e-learning is a great option for your SEN learners. So being able to introduce game mechanics as we do in the student logging for Sam Learning, as well as rewards and gear for their avatars, as you saw earlier, those have always been a real win for the special schools and alternative provisions that are currently using Sam Learning. Additionally, if we go back to the three-wave intervention model that you saw earlier, we can set customized and content-rich activities to smaller groups to monitor the work of those targeted learners, including the ones that are in your SEN cohorts. Esther, thank you. And again, looking at time, I feel I should probably stop talking. But for all of the questions that we didn't have time to answer, I absolutely acknowledge them. And either Stephanie or myself will be in touch soon after this webinar. Stephanie, thanks. Over to you.
Thank you, Craig. And that, I believe, brings us to the end of our successful virtual schooling webinar. I hope that you have all found it beneficial this afternoon. As I said, I will be in touch over the next few days with some follow-up materials and a recording of the event. We look forward to hearing from you again very soon, and hopefully you can join our next webinar, which is Successful Intervention and Differentiation, and we will be holding that on the 11th of June at 10 AM and again at 3 PM. And we will also be holding an SEN supporting your SEN learners through e-learning webinar on the 16th of June. Again, 2 time slots will be available to suit your needs. So you can either join the morning session at 10 AM or the afternoon session at 3 PM. I'm going to leave today's webinar open for the next 5 to 10 minutes, just so you can get access to the videos and the handouts available to you. So grab yourself a coffee and feel free to watch the video for the next 5 minutes. We would like to take this opportunity to wish you all the very best, and we look forward to hopefully hearing from you again very soon. Take care now.